Alright, so we're going to go ahead and remove the glass on this iPad Air. Got a couple of tools that we're going to be using here for the repair. We got a suction cup to help us try to pull the glass off of the frame. Some cut-up cards to help us kind of set off the glass as we remove it so it doesn't reheat itself to the frame of the device. We've got some guitar picks, a slew here, help us remove the glass and set it up as well, pull it off a little bit. Just coming prepared just in case I have a lot of different sticky issues with this adhesive here. We've got this metal spudger here. We're going to try to use this as a last resort, but normally it comes in very handy and I have to use it to get some of this glass off. We're going to use a couple of these nylon spudgers to help undo any cables on the interior portion of this to remove the Digitizer home button off of the device as well. And a Phillips screwdriver. There are screws that hold down the LCD screen, and we're going to go ahead and remove those out of the device as well. You can see it's definitely got some shatter issues happening here. It might be a little bit tricky to get the glass off of the device because it is so shattered. I have my new glass here. This one came with the home button pre-installed, so I'm not going to be showing you how to replace the home button, but it's definitely not too difficult. If you've done an iPad 2 or anything of that nature, it's pretty easy. So what we're going to try to do is lift it off and kind of open it like a book from this top side here. See the home button right here and the cable that runs across the bottom. So you want to be a little bit careful as you remove the glass off the device. If you're looking to retain that home button, you definitely don't want to catch your opening tools on it and cut the cable at all. We'll also be needing a heat gun. You can use a regular heat gun. This is a hot air soldering iron, which I'll be using with an adjustable temp. You can get them for fairly cheap, almost the same price as a heat gun. They're like 80 bucks off of eBay or Amazon. It's nothing too crazy. We're going to go ahead and heat up around the sides of the device. It doesn't have to be extremely hot. The nice thing about the new iPad Air is that the actual bezel is metal. But you want to be careful at the top, on the opposite side of the home button. There's some plastic there where they put in some of the antennas. We're going to go ahead and heat up the exterior of the device equally all the way around. Taking our time, but not leaving the device or the heat source in one area. Making sure you just move it around the device. Get some equal heat all the way around. It will take a little bit of time to get it up to temperature, and once you really get the nice and warm, at that point it'll be really easy to reheat when the glue or the adhesive starts to get sticky and tacky and not able to move again. So just keep moving the heat gun around the exterior. Like I was saying, at the top of the opposite side of the home button, you want to put a ton of heat there. There's some plastic there as well. Try to keep it as low heat as possible. You don't want to melt or warp that at all. It's definitely not too hot yet. Go ahead and try and see if we can go ahead and start the glass. We're going to use this guitar pick if possible. With the metal bezel, it's really difficult to get this in. Let's kind of slide it back and forth and see if we can't get some pry. Let's go ahead and start it off with this iSessimal tool here and make it a little bit easier. I'm going to start on this side because there's not a ribbon cable here. So we can start right in the middle, give us a good, nice, and easy opening spot. I'm going to use this infrared thermometer here. I don't want to heat the LCD up too much, but it's definitely not hot enough to pry off yet, so we'll go ahead and put some more heat to it. Trying to get it above about 180 degrees. We don't want to damage the screen at all. It's an easy way to gauge the heat temperature without actually damaging the iPad. You can get these infrared thermometers for pretty cheap at Lowe's or Home Depot. You can order them online as well. They're usually about 20-30 bucks. Taking our time to go on the outside of the device. Not staying in one spot for too long. A little bit hard to get a tablet up to temp compared to a phone if you're used to repairing phones. So we can get some good here at our starting point. Go ahead and try opening it here now. Try guitar pick again and just see if we can't sneak it on into the device. The reason why I want to use this more so than the metal opening tool is I don't want to damage the metal housing of the iPad. I might use this to start us off and then try to switch to the guitar pick, but inevitably when it comes down to it, this is probably the best opening tool that you can get. Just try to sneak in here. There's a really minimal gaps on the exterior of this. It's hard to get your tool in and started. Got a little piece of glass breaking off there. Starting at kind of a shatter point. And we'll go ahead and just wiggle our tool in there just a little bit. Try to put a guitar pick in here as well. Perfect. Now that we've made the entry point, we can use this and kind of slide it around the device and see if we can't get it to start to separate some of the glass. We can use these playing cards to help separate and possibly cut the adhesive as well. Now the adhesive around this is pretty thin. It's only about the width of the white on this playing card. You don't want to go too far, and there's some foam around the device that kind of pulls the screen off of the LCD, so you don't want to damage a ton of that. You want to make sure it has good separation here still as well. Now on the shatter points where you can see this glass is kind of lifting, it's very hard to keep the card going along it. You'll have to continually try to pry it up if you have broken glass on this device. So you can slide through the glass there. Just going to take our time with a lot of patience and go around this and get this to lift up for us. Just not having a lot of luck here. Go ahead and put the guitar pick here so we can get a little bit more leverage. Put our iSesamo tool back in. So you can see that the glass is removing off the shatter points. So we're just going to pull the chunks out. Have this flat spudger here we're going to try to use since got a lot of damage here on this side of the iPad. We want to try to get underneath the black adhesive here. So I'm just putting our device under, our tool underneath it. Makes it a little bit easier if you can do that. We're going to go ahead and apply some more heat to this area. We're going to go ahead and try to lift off. Work our way down the line a little bit. Sometimes it can be easier to work in sections on a bigger device like a tablet. If it's extremely shattered, this one has two different shatter points on it. It will be a little bit harder to get the glass off. You just want to take your time and be patient. Make sure that you don't rush through. We don't want to crack the screen underneath the LCD screen. So just be patient and take your time. going to go ahead and just pull out this chipped piece. Gives a little bit more play around the bezel. Try to slide the card in and underneath now that we've got to lift it up just a little bit. You can almost use the card in a sawing motion, which would give it a little bit more leverage to cut through the tape. And really using a plastic tool will help save the bezel. Even if I'm using the metal isosimo tool, it's pretty thin, and I'm being very careful to not dig in too deep. I'm going to put some more heat here on the side. Just work our way down into the corner. Kind of lift up this cracked piece just right here. You can see what it's starting to lift away now that I can get it under a nice large piece. When you're using a metal tool like this, you want to be careful not to slide it very much, and if you are, you want to make sure you're lifting up nicely. You're not jabbing the edges down onto the device to mess up the bezel at all. Just keep sliding the card down. I'm going to leave this card there to help give it a little bit of standoff off the device. Use this next card to kind of cut through the adhesive a little bit more. This tablet definitely has some thick rubberized adhesive on it. Just kind of slide the card around the corner. This corner's got a big chip in it as well. So we can't slide the card underneath the chip. Apply a little bit more heat. Work our way down just a little bit. You don't want to necessarily apply it just to the area that you're working on. As you pull this corner up, it'll actually put pressure on the rest of the iPad. So you want to take your care and make sure you warm up a little space as you move down the side. Just kind of wiggle our tool underneath so we can get it to pry up just a little bit. Go ahead and put our metal spudger in. We'll just wiggle it back and forth. The levers that we're looking for on the tablet. Some real thick adhesive up here at the top. Put some more heat on the device right here. Now you want to be careful at the top up here, as it does have that kind of plastic riser or the plastic antenna area of the device. You don't want to put a ton of heat on it. You don't want to melt that or warp that. The glass to sit flush when you put it back in. Be a little bit more ideal to not use a metal pry tool right here unless the plastic is cooled down. When it comes down to it, the worst case, you can do so if you need to. I'm just going to try to pry against the card here. So we can get a little bit more separation as we move down. Now I'm putting the spudger not on the bezel, but in between the glass and the frame of the device. See, a big chunk of glass comes out right there. This is probably the most shattered iPad Air I've done. Perfect. Making pretty good progress now. You want to be careful around the camera area of the device. There's some adhesive on both sides of the camera, top and bottom. There's nothing that holds the camera to the glass, so when you slide it through, you want to use something very slim like a card or that iSesamo tool when pushing through the adhesive on the bottom portion of it. We're going to heat up the next side of the device, get it nice and warm so we get some separation of the tape from the mid frame. Just work our heat gun down nice and slow. Make sure I'm using that infrared thermometer. This is probably the coldest side of the tablet at this point, so we'll just get it nice and warm again. One nice thing about working with a metal frame tablet is it does retain its heat fairly well. Go ahead and use our metal spudger to see if we can't just slide it down the tape here on the side. It's a little bit thicker here. Just use a playing card to help stand the glass off the device. Did not work out as planned. We'll go ahead and just use it to kind of cut down the side of the device. We got another piece of cracked glass where the card's getting stuck. See if we can get some lift on it and slide the card underneath. Try again with the iSesamo tool, see if we can't get a little separation happening here so we can get that card under there. Just struggling right here on the side. Pull off this little fractured piece of glass here, will give us better access to the device. So now it works a little bit easier. To apply a little bit more heat here as our tablet cooled down. The nice thing about the infrared thermometer is sometimes you get a little bit frustrated trying to remove the glass, and it'll help save you wondering or getting out too much out of frustration. Just slide our card down the adhesive strip here so we can't get the glass separation that we're looking for. Perfect. And again, using the card just to kind of cut through. Make sure I got all the adhesive pulled off here. See how shattered this is? There's a big chunk right here looking to peel off. So we're looking to see where the cable's at on the device. It's right here where my card's currently at. And if we slide it in too much further, we'll get some resistance. Put a little more heat on the device down here. Heat up all the way down to the home button. Now I'm being pretty cautious with this one just because there's so much shattered glass on it. I don't want the glass to cave on inwards and scratch the LCD of the device either. So just taking your time as we do this. I'm going to move this tool down into the corner here. Be careful of the cables around here if you feel a lot of resistance. It doesn't feel like tape. Just take your time and move your card back and forth. Slide our tool in, just try to catch this corner, make sure I got all the glue out of here. Just slightly lifting up in the glass. Start here on this side and work our way around. Go ahead and put some more heat on the device. And take our tool and just start here and try to lift the glass up. This is a pretty shattered point of the device as well. Pull off just a little bit of the chunks of glass. You can see that the bezel, the adhesive is not too far in here because you can see this little copper piece that just displayed. This is a backing to part of the glass. So you only need to go in about the width of a card. Wiggle it just a little bit, see if we can't get some separation. insert a card here to make sure that we keep our progress. Corner's a little bit tough as it's got some pieces that are a little bit shattered there and kind of bending over the glass a little bit. You have to kind of pop out the glass just to a degree if you have a shatter like this. Go ahead and pull back a little piece of the glass to make it a little bit easier to manhandle. Use our card to slide it down here in the corner, make sure it doesn't get stuck, and read here itself. Use our straight spudger and go ahead and slide it down the side of the tablet here. We got a nice straight piece of glass sticking out. We're just trying to pry the adhesive off the side here. Not go too far down to hit the home button. See if we can gain a little bit of progress here. It seems like it's a little bit tricky down here on this side. You want to be careful as there's two antennas that are underneath this bottom piece. You want to get it pretty warm when you're going ahead to remove this. We don't want to pry the antennas up. They do have a pretty thick plastic portion over them that doesn't pull off too easy, but just to be careful and on the safe side. We're going to try to make sure that we get all of the adhesive and kind of pry this screen up a little bit here on the side as well so it doesn't readheat itself. Go ahead and just push our pry tool down and in. The reason why I'm using this metal spudger here is I want to make sure that I'm underneath the tape as I pry this off of the antenna down here at the bottom. You can use some additional heat to get this nice and warm so I can get the antenna to pull up nice and easy. Now, I know this may take a little bit longer than other videos that you watch, but the goal is that everything functions correctly once we get this off. We don't want to have any issues, and that comes with a nice patience when removing these broken and shattered glass screens. See if it's still warm, which looks like it's cooled down a little bit. That's pretty quick. We're just going to go ahead and put some more heat on it here. Get it nice and warm. There's an antenna on this side as well as the home button ribbon cable that runs down the side of the glass. We're going to be pretty gentle as we pull this out and just kind of take our time. Be pretty gentle around the home button. You definitely don't have to dip the tool in too far. Perfect. Go ahead and see if we can't use the playing card to help us out a little bit here. It does get a little bit tricky. The adhesive sticks in a little bit deeper and right next to the home button, and then it flattens back out next to the home button. Kind of covers up the antennas here. Go ahead and just try to pry this screen off here. Take our time and go around and make sure all the adhesive is pulled up. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure we get the glass separation here. So you work a tool all the way around. Using this flat spudger here just to make sure that we get it to kind of pull up and separate. We can use our hands a little bit to apply the pressure. See, I'm twisting it, trying to get the tape to pop. Being nice and gentle here. Definitely don't want to have any issue. We're trying to get the adhesive on the opposite side of the camera to pull off for us. Like I was saying, it has adhesive on both sides of the camera. Just taking our time. It seems like that's what's holding this glass still in place. Just working my way around the device, trying to get all the tape to come up so I can go ahead and just open it. Putting a little extra heat on it here to go ahead and loosen the glue so I can give it a little bit extra tug so I can get it to separate from the display portion. Just move this playing card around, make sure I got all the glue undone. Kind of dip it in a little bit, make sure I get underneath the camera. You can see that we've got a nice separation now. We can almost pull the entire thing up. With it being shattered like this, if you have tape in just one area, it kind of holds it down a little bit. It's a little bit tricky. So just take your time and move your way around the display. I'm going to put a little heat down here on the antennas as well before you go ahead and try to just lift it off completely. I want to make sure it's nice and warm, so when you go ahead and separate it, we don't pull these antennas out. Go ahead and put the heat on. Unfortunately, my camera stopped recording as I was heating that up. See, I put just a couple more cards in. What we can do is go ahead and pull this up and lift it like an accordion or a book away. Being careful, the cable's on the one side. You can see that we have the home button cable and the two ribbon cables here that are underneath the LCD. Go ahead and just remove all the cards from the device. So we go ahead and pull this tape back. Any residual tape that's here, go ahead and just remove it from the device. Just cause more problems. Here's that antenna I was talking about. You can see it right here. There's one on this side as well. And looking at this, you can see how the tape kind of ramps up near the home button, kind of like a triangle or a pyramid. Just going to use a pick here to help pry some of this adhesive off of the bezel here. You want to be very careful not to really touch the LCD. You want it to be as clean as possible. You don't want to have to clean it too much to get the glass back on. You don't want any streaking underneath. We're going to go ahead and undo the screw down here at the bottom. There's a total of 4 screws in this LCD, the one here at the top. Now it did trick me for just a second because the top 2 are underneath some adhesive or some tape that covers them up a little bit. Making sure it's going to separate down here at the bottom for us. Right here at the top you can see that there's going to be 2 additional screws. And they're covered over by little black tape. I'm just going to use a dental pick to go ahead and remove that tape. Kind of pry it back a little bit. You don't have to remove it all the way, just enough to go ahead and reveal the screw that's underneath. Go ahead and undo this screw here. And all 4 of these are Phillips screws. Undo the second one as well. Same process, go ahead and peel back the tape just a little bit and reveal that screw. Let's go ahead and remove it as well. We go ahead and pull the LCD up. We want to make sure we tilt it up just to a 90-degree angle. See right here, we have our silver plate that covers over the connectors for the screen, the glass and the digitizer as well. I'm just going to lay this back down for a second. Get my screwdriver ready. Go ahead and undo the screws that hold this plate down. Being nice and gentle with the display. I'm going to go ahead and just use a dental pick to help pry this up and off. The plate was attached to the back of the display ribbon cable with some adhesive, and that pried right off for us. Go ahead and just peel back the adhesive that's covering this ribbon connector here. That'll pry out and usually lifts up the little ribbon cable flange, and it'll pull the cable out for you as well. If not, you may have to flip the connector up. That'll be for the home button. We have 2 additional cables here. Just go ahead and pop off both the display cables. Perfect, we have the glass off. We can go ahead and get that set aside. We can go ahead and just pull the adhesive back and remove it all the way down. All the adhesive from anywhere on the housing for this device. We want to make sure there's no ripples or ridges that may be pulling the glass up once you reinsert it. So make sure it's nice and bare. Spend some time to make sure that it's perfect and there's no excess tape on the housing. Just going around to make sure that we get all the little tiny tape residue. See, there's a little piece here. That would cause a ripple or a standoff on the screen once you put it in. It won't sit flat and seated. You have a lip around the bezel. We definitely don't want that. We want it to look brand new. Remove all of that double-sided adhesive. Especially with the screen this shattered, if you're trying to reuse it to just take it down, normally it's got little glass particles in it. When you use the touch screen, you'll hear it kind of click and clack underneath your finger presses. It's much better just go ahead and replace the adhesive altogether. Now the display I'm using did come with adhesive, but you can just use some 3M tape that you'd use to repair a cell phone screen. Will work properly for you as well. We have some ridges here on the corners where it kind of bent in on the aluminum housing. What we're going to try to do is go through and kind of bend this back out a little bit. We want to make sure the glass is going to sit in here nice and flush. And since the glass was shattered in the corners, it'd be difficult to get the glass back in. Make sure you get all the residue out right here on the sides as well. It'll stick and make the screen look funky and have raised edges that you'll feel when you run your fingers around the sides of the device. We're going to take this razor blade, and since this is an aluminum housing, what we can do is use it to cut and peel away the metal that's bent inwards that'll be blocking the glass from sitting flush. We're just going to shave it off in chunks, making sure not to gouge too deeply, just doing a small layer at a time. Nice and slow, making sure that you don't cut yourself with a nice sharp razor blade. If it shattered on the corner point like it did on this one, you want to make sure you do this as you shave it off a little bit. It'll really make the installation of the glass much easier. Make sure that it's nice and round all the way around the edges of the device. What you can do is you can take your replacement glass and kind of inlay it while it's still got its covering on. You can see whether or not it's going to fit properly or not. It's laying it in the corners. You can see that this one is definitely not going to in this top corner here. Needs a little bit of help getting it round instead of the oval shape it is from when it dropped. Like I was saying, make sure you take your time here to make sure the device looks flawless when you go to reassemble it. Try to measure it again and to see how it looks. You want to make sure it fits perfect. Nothing's worse than getting in the process of reinstalling the glass. You take all the adhesive covering off and it doesn't fit. It'd be a waste of your money. Make sure you inset the camera that it's sitting nice and flush as well. Just checking the corners to make sure they're nice and round. Looks like this one still needs a little bit of work. So again, just taking the razor blade and kind of cutting the aluminum little by little of the frame. Just taking little shavings off. Trying my best to follow the round edge of the device. Going to go ahead and insert the display here. Now normally if you don't have the home button attached, it's actually attached to the glass with some adhesive. This one comes with it along the back. I'm just going to take the glass tape off here that's holding this home button down. Now I will put a link in the description about removing and replacing the home button if you want to watch that video. This video will already be long enough without that, so I don't want to put it into this one since it already has it in the device. But you can see when you have this new display, the home cable comes with this little tape attached to it as well. We're going to go ahead and insert it into the device. I'm going to flip the clip up here and make sure we seat the cable in properly. Go ahead and put on our other additional cables here for the touchscreen digitizer. Just going to go through and remove the little backing off this cable. Has some adhesive onto it. We'll go ahead and put it down in the correct spot. Goes right on top of this metal fabric tape right here below. Make sure it's angled and it's nice and straight. Don't want any issues with this ribbon cable when we put it back into the device. Go ahead and put our metal shield connector back on for the LCD screen. Again, we're just going to stand it up at a 90-degree angle. Go ahead and push the connector down onto the ribbon cable connector next to the battery. Double check and make sure everything's going to fit properly for us. We're going to power on the display. You can see that it definitely is going to function properly. We got the dead battery, so we've hooked up the LCD correctly. Plug in a power cord, and we definitely have screen turning on. You can see the touch screen is functional for us. Touch does feel correct. It's in the right spot where it should be. Go ahead and just power off the display. Alright, now to plug the cable to it. We're just going to put this suction cup on. It's a little bit easier for me to put this display down after I move the covering off the back of it. We definitely don't want any fingerprints on it where we put it down onto the device. And that puts it up at a nice kind of 90-degree angle here. I'm going to go ahead and put the connectors down into the metal covering over the cable connector area of the device. Go ahead and put in all 3 screws. Suction cup popped off. Let's kind of stick it back on here. We'll go ahead and put the 4 screws back into the corners of the display. Just lift the tape up a little bit and make sure that you put it back down to cover the display. I believe that everything was put in here for a reason. It's definitely not there to be aesthetically pleasing. I understand this is a very long video, but I didn't want to edit it or cut any parts out so you can see the full way of doing this with all the issues and things that arise as you're disassembling this. I don't really want it to look easy, and I don't really want it to look hard. I want it to look exactly how it is to change. We're going to take a can of air here to go ahead and dust out the interior portion of the screen. Normally when you have a shattered screen, you'll get little shards of glass on the inside of the device. We want to blow those out and off of the display. Go ahead and peel away the adhesive off of the back. Make sure that it stays attached to the glass as you peel off the backing of the tape. Making sure the home ribbon cable is adhesed to the back of the glass, but not covering up the tape that's going to be touching the housing of the device as well. We go ahead and peel the backing of the tape off. Go all the way around the device. It's a little bit tricky to get this backing off. There we go. I'm going to pull it out before I go down that side of the device. It's going to pull this forward so I can peel it off from behind the ribbon cables. Alright, everything's looking good. We're on our progress here. And I take a microfiber cloth and make sure we clean up any fingerprints that are still in the device, anywhere on the corners, any glue residue, any dust particles that won't be blown off with a dry or the compressed air can. So just take your time and make sure your display is flawless. You don't want to have any fingerprints or anything of that nature underneath it. I would stay away from using any cleaning solution, alcohol or anything of that nature. Just use some of your breath and a microfiber cloth. It'll clean it up quite nice. Want to make sure there's no cloudy corners. Just taking your time and cleaning the display. Alright, with that done, we can go ahead and peel out the protective covering on the back side of the glass. Definitely want to make sure you remove this from the device before you install the glass onto it. I usually save it for the last second or before I install the glass to get a nice clean surface. If need be, you can go ahead and blow it off with a little compressed air. Make sure there's no leftover dust particles from the factory. You're going to go ahead and tip it in. I'm going to start with the corners first. Make sure that the corners get locked into place. The home button ribbon cable needs to fold inwards towards the device. It's something that happened as I was closing the display in the clamshell fashion, so it's will kind of bend right in half and it'll close into the device. If it closes outwards, it'll get stuck on your tape and you'll have a raised edge right there. So make sure you close it in towards the device. You'll see there's a little bend or fold in the cable where it needs to bend inwards. Just going down the sides now, making sure that all of the adhesive is getting attached in all the corners. Now I definitely understand this is a longer video and I didn't necessarily need to make it that way, but I didn't want to edit it and show you anything that wasn't true. As always, I really appreciate you guys watching the videos. If you have any questions or comments, you can go ahead and hit me up in the comments section. And I have a couple other videos coming up soon. We'll do a housing replacement on iPhone 5S and a couple different videos like that. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more. And as always, thanks for watching.